Everyone, it's Ed. Good to see you again. Welcome to 2024. Looking for some exciting new things on the channel this year. Just to start off, I wanted to take a minute and thank you all again for watching over the month of December. We started near the end of December, right around Christmas time, and we did a few reviews. We talked about the Supernote and how it fit into organizing, and we talked about how you could take that and not really just use it as a tool or a device, but how you could use it in multiple ways. We're going to look at you finding what's your best workflow to get things done. Everyone has their own way of approaching the world, approaching organization, and we just want to help you kind of think through what some of those different possibilities are. So in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the calendar. We're going to talk about it more in depth than we did when we were comparing kind of the different planners and how you could use the Supernote calendar as a tool mixed with notes. We are going to show some of that functionality, but we're also going to talk more about its particular workflow and what some of the limitations are. So instead of just looking at kind of the overall like we did when we were looking at the different planner types, we're going to take this a little bit further and look specifically at the calendar. And that way you can kind of decide, does this work for me? Is this something I can use? I would say for sure, if you have one dedicated calendar, you can use this with no problem. Let's get into this. Before we do, though, please like and subscribe. I'm super excited with the fact that we've had approaching 4,000 views on this channel, and we've got 88 subscribers and climbing. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but when you started your first month out, it's pretty awesome, and I really appreciate the support. So thank you again, and I will see you in a minute. All right, so let's take a look real quick at what we've got going on with the Supernote calendar. So here's the calendar. And we've talked before, and I kind of tried to do this. This is my work calendar, so I wanted to make sure that there was no information available or that you could see, just in case there were some kind of a private event or something like that. So I basically created something for tomorrow. And if you look right here, you'll see on the 7th, there's a dot. And since I've highlighted that particular date, you can see right here we have our test event. When you tap into that event, it'll pop up. You can delete it, you can edit it, and when you go into edit, you can see all of the information. So now one thing that is interesting is you're not going to be able to see, like for example, this has an embedded Google Meeting in it, and you're not able to see that part. Or what you do with that, those are going to be available. Now from here, you can edit the date, you can edit the time. Let's say we want to change this to be on the 5th. Now we've changed it to the 5th, and let's say we want to add some notes here. We didn't have all the information we needed, so now that we need to go ahead and enter this. Now you can do this either with the virtual keyboard, which if you hit this little globe here, you can type in what you want. I find that takes a little bit too much time and is a little bit cumbersome. If you hit the globe again, now you're back to the handwriting keyboard. Is just hit this sync button right here in the top corner. And then as that syncs, it takes it a few minutes. And you'll see now that this is gone here where we were on the 7th. And back over here now on the 5th, we have that. You'll see here that it changed the date and time. And at the bottom here where you see the notes, it says meeting to discuss organization. So there you have it. It moves that fast. Once you do that sync, just as a word of caution, you might have to go out of the calendar app and back in on your phone, which is a little strange. I don't know if that's just a thing with the Google app on my phone, but I just want you to be aware that I did have to go out and back in, but then that sync was there. So now you have all of that same information. Anything you put in the body is going to stay there, and anything that you do is going to have that that functionality. One thing to remember is on the monthly view and the weekly view, you can write. You can write all you want. You can add anything you want here. It's one of the things that makes it so powerful. But we'll talk more about that in a minute. On the daily view, what you can do is you can pull open your task, you can edit it, you can do whatever you want. You can see all the tasks lined up. If I had multiple meetings here, all of that would be visible and it'd be very easy to navigate through and find and find available times. So one reason that this is really an awesome planning tool is I don't need to have my laptop with me for this. I don't need to reach in and pull my phone out. I know you can do that. It's easy, it's intuitive, but sometimes you don't want to break that personal connection you have. You don't want to pull out your phone. You want to just deal with the device you have. And in this case, it's really easy. So if someone says, "Hey, we've got this meeting. We're in this meeting, say at 9 p.m. on a Friday," which does happen, but not as much for work. But let's say we want to go out and we want to go, well, let's look at that 7th. So what are you doing on Sunday? We look, we open up, we go to the 7th, we go to the daily view, we see we've got nothing. They say, well, let's meet again at 4 o'clock. Here, I can actually tap 4 o'clock. You can see it pops up from 4 to 5. It defaults to an hour. And I can name this and I can say that this is second meeting. And you'll see that pops right up. The hand recognition is very good on this device. And let's say I want to add a few details. So I hit that description and I say, this is a follow-up meeting to our first meeting on 1 5. And it should recognize all of that real well. Matter of fact, it did one extra space when I wrote first. So if I'd have written that as a word, odds are it would have hit it perfectly. So now I hit OK again. Now I have that new meeting here on my daily. I go back and it's on the weekly, and you now see a dot there. So I kind of like, and it shows the dot, but when you do highlight the date, one thing that I didn't point out is that this is your informational bucket. So this is going to show you stacked up, and you'll see it scrolls here with this little arrow. You can see your entire day. So yes, it's only got a dot up here, even on the daily view. But again, this is a constant frame in those two views. So it's really not that hard. And you can also actually edit straight from here. So you don't even have to go in, touch the event, open the event. You just go straight into it from wherever you're at. It's very intuitive. It's very functional, and it allows you kind of that command of being able to say, okay, I want to be able to work in my notes. I want to be able to do things. And again, I don't have any notes yet because I didn't create any for this day. Usually my workflow is to create my notes in advance that morning. So I get into the office around 8 o'clock. If I have upcoming meetings, I go ahead and I say, I'm going to create a note for each meeting. Go ahead, title it, date it, and label it because my file structure is pretty straightforward. I have folders. In those folders, I have a date attached to each note, and that way it's pretty easy for me to navigate from then on. So I use a folder subfolder structure, and we can go through that in another video, kind of when we're talking about just general organization. So I'll go in and I'll proactively label all of my notes. Now, the reason that I do that is because I don't want to have this situation, but I do have it quite a bit anyway, because there are pop-up meetings, meetings I don't have time to pre-label, and now I'm in the moment and I have to have this, I have to take notes. So I just hit new note. If I have time to label it, I do. If I don't, I just go ahead and hit create. It remembers your last template. So whatever you've created as a template, you can go ahead and start that note immediately. Now, if I'm in a real big hurry, I'll leave this top line blank and then I'll just start writing, and I usually do arrows and bullets. So this is a note. This is an item, and so on. It's really quick. It's really intuitive. Then after the fact, I'll go back and I'll label this organizational meeting 2. And then I might add a title. So I just go ahead and I hit the lasso. I go around it and I hit the title. So I turn it into a heading. Sorry, they changed it to headings. And then I hit the color I want. Now that's a heading. Now I know that's not what the headings are technically for. They are used to kind of create that table of contents. And we can talk about that in another one as well. The reason I do it here is because of archival. So whenever I go back, like when I am done with a large project, or for example, when I left my last employer, I basically copied and put all of the previous notes into one large file and then exported that as a PDF, as a note, and as a Word document. And when I did that, all of these headings in the note made it very easy. If I need to go and pull that back out, then I've got this huge table of contents with all of the different meetings I had over that 2 years. So it really makes a big difference for organization that way. In the specific notes, my folder structure really doesn't make that the priority. One other thing to think about here, and I think this is a lot of probably one of my favorite parts of this, is you'll notice when I go back, I'm still in the calendar. Okay, I moved the meeting to the 6th, and let me tell you why I did that. Because there's a common trap that you can kind of fall into when you use the Supernote. One of them is that you have to remember that the dates that the notes show up here in this bottom left, the notes only show up in the date created. Now, I've talked to Rada about this, and hopefully they will get it solved at some point. But the idea is that that's the most important time in most cases. And I do get that. But it would be better if you have recurring notes or notes that you use quite a bit for them to be able to have both created and accessed. Now, that wouldn't help us in this particular case because I created it today, which is the 6th, and I tried to access it on the 7th. And you'll see there's no note there yet. So, what I did for the sake of the video and to be able to show you the functionality is I went ahead and moved the meeting to the 6th. So again, all of that was done. I go ahead and I can sync it so that it's the same on my phone as it is on here. And we have all of that information in the same place. The idea behind that is to make sure that now when I go to open this note, because I'm here and I didn't label it yet, so you'll see it just defaults with a big long number, which is the date. What I can do here is I can then take this out and rename it. Go to this little ellipse here, press on rename, rename this organizational 2. And then usually I wait to do the parentheses. So, and then it would be 01, 06, 2024 and close that out. So there is my note. Now, the reason I name it that way is so it's easier for me to sort and find. But now when I go back and I look, it's been renamed. So not only do I have any of the meeting notes that I've already had for that day, but I now have this new note that I had to do on the fly. And all of them will be there. That's never going to change. And one reason, just to show you why I didn't pick the 6th at first and I didn't think about it, was the toolbar, if you notice in the earlier part of the video, was up here. Well, that's easy to fix. You just hold down and press it, and you can move that toolbar pretty much anywhere you want it to be. So you can even move it down here. I don't know why you would, but you can. But you move that toolbar and then just place it wherever you need it to be. I don't think you can hide it. That is one thing I kind of wish Rada would come up with a double tap to hide the toolbar or something, but they haven't done that yet. They do it in the notes, just not in the calendar yet. So to me, those are some really important pieces. Let's take just a couple minutes to talk about each view and kind of what that has to offer. Let's start with the monthly view. So on the monthly view, one thing that's really nice is you have, you know, obviously the wide out piece. Now, what you can't see is like on your Google Calendar where you have all of the different ones kind of stacked up and lined up. Because again, you're working with a smaller format. But at the same time, on any of these days, I can go through and I can press the day and I see whatever event there is, and it pops up. The other piece is you'll notice here when I'm on the 5th, there weren't any notes that day because that was created to test the system. But then when I go to the 6th, all of a sudden I have that one note that we talked about earlier. And if I touch it, it pops right up. Also, I have that ability still to create a new note and I can edit the event right here from this page. And if there were multiples, they'd all be there. Another nice thing about this is say, there's something that I need to be aware of. And since this does only have one calendar, it's important to think, well, maybe there's some personal items that I do need on my work calendar. And I have that with Google because what I can do is I can merge the calendars and I can see them in one combined view. Well, we can't do that yet on the Supernote. So a workaround to that is let's just say that, there's something really important coming up on the 26th. Let's say, because I use soccer a lot, or let's do the 27th because it's a Saturday. So let's say that there's something really important coming up on the 27th and it's soccer. So I just put soccer right there. Now I can also put that on the weekly calendar, which I will to show you here in a minute. But at the same time, what it does is it gives me a way to kind of add in things on the fly. And it's a nice way to be able to go through that. Let's say that there's also soccer practice. So that may be a little harder to get on here depending on how big you write, but it does work. So let's say the kids have soccer practice on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So soccer practice. So there you go. You have all three of those right there. And now that week is pretty much done. Now, if I wanted to reduce clutter, at the end of every week when we're completed, I could take and I could two fingers, lasso that, and it's gone. So it's really easy to go through and clear all of this out if you have handwritten content. Again, those are really important notes and pieces for this. Now let's take a look at the weekly calendar. So the weekly calendar has a lot of different functions as well. Let's say on Saturday the 6th, which is today, the kids had soccer. Pretty cold for that, but then again, there are indoor soccer leagues and they're going to do that. Now I have more real estate here, so I could, if I wanted to, say that there's soccer. Turn this a little bit, it's easier to write on. Soccer at 6 p.m. Now that is going to stay there and I can go ahead and make those notes all the way through. If you have a lot of things happening on the personal level, you could use this still as a handwritten planner for those events. You'll notice the similarities here between the monthly and the daily view. This bottom piece, as I mentioned before, does not change. There's your note. You can create a new note. There's your event. You can edit that event. You have more real estate to write things in here. You can also go to each day and this changes accordingly. And you can go to future days. Now, if you want to go through, and I believe, yep, it's a quick, simple swipe to move forward one week and back one week. That might, and I believe is the case too, with the calendar here. You can always use the arrows at the top that allow you to navigate back and forth, but you can also swipe, which makes it really functional. And if you're in the weekly view, you don't have to go back to the monthly view to be able to refresh and sync the calendar or to add an event. All of that travels with you. And if you want to, let's just see. Yep. If you want to go to today, this little link here at the top allows you to do that. And it allows you to do that on either of these. So in some ways, this hyperlinked nature of the planner is very much like MDO, like the Get It Done Planner, all the hyperlinked planners, but obviously not as intricate when it comes to the multiple linking. Now, at the same time, you're also, going to have a lot of functionality by having a very simplified, tight system. That's the weekly view in a nutshell. Very much similar in a lot of ways to the monthly view, only you have more room to write on. You could actually, you know, do that planning we talked about from here. Let's say that someone wants to set a meeting for the 7th. You just move forward. Sometimes you got to get right. You just move forward, you hit the 7th, and then you see you have no events. So you don't even have to go into the daily to do anything. You can press the plus button, and here's your event. It really is just that functional. All you have to do from this planner or from this calendar is know how to navigate it. Once you do, all of that is really easy to take care of. Let's go to the daily view. And to me, this is the biggest need for Supernote is how to handle this daily view. So the daily view is really cool. You can press here on the day and see all of your meetings, which we covered a little earlier. You can press from any time period and create a meeting automatically and then just extend that. I don't believe, nope, you can't. I thought maybe you could drop and drag almost to where you press a meeting and pull down. That's not going to happen, but you can pick the hour to start the meeting on, and that works really well. You can look into an existing meeting. You can edit that meeting directly from when it's on here. You can skip forward a day or back a day, and that works really well. Or you can use the plus button to add a new meeting or the today to pop back. Again, one nice thing about this calendar is that no matter where you're at in it, you can handle the same functions. The only thing you can't do from this view, which again is the major limitation, is I can't write on it. So I couldn't come in here and say, oh, well, I don't have time to actually set the meeting right now, but I want to write, cancel that. But I want to write from 10 a.m. meeting with John to 3 and just write an arrow as a placeholder. I can do that if I go back to the weekly view. So here I could say set meeting. Oh, I'm still on the eraser. Set meeting. Set meeting with John 4 p.m. to 6. Kind of ugly, but there it is. Why this is important is that sometimes in the moment, it may be the very end of a meeting. You've taken your notes, you've already gotten out, you're about to head out, but you're on the calendar, and someone says, hey, can we talk about this? And real quickly, they say, well, what about 4 p.m. today? Now, to be fair, you have to either have this part open, which you would in this case, or you have to know you're not going to have any other meetings that day. And then you can say, you know what, sure, we can do that. And you just write it down real quick here. Go in after you get back to your office, create the calendar event, and you're good. I think what would be really nice is if you could do that on the daily view. That would be really helpful. Or this would also be a place where let's say that you don't have a full meeting or you don't have anything on your calendar, but what you want to do is you want to kind of give yourself kind of a mini task list to say, okay, from 9 to 11, I'm going to work on the survey. And from 11 to 12, I'm going to do X. And at 12 o'clock, I'm going to have lunch. But I don't want to put in a lunch calendar event. Some people do, and there's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, I don't want to do that. I want to just have it on this calendar for me to see, and it's not really there for the world to see. This is my own personal planning piece. That's why I think that RADA should really consider making the ability to handwrite on the daily view a priority. Again, each to their own. Some people are going to think, oh, that's a great idea. I love it. Others are going to think, no, that's kind of silly. But for me, it would be really, really a great tool. So there you have it. Pretty fun, pretty intuitive. I think that the nice thing about uh, these tools is that they have a lot of functionality. They do have some limitations. You know, the biggest drawbacks, as we did in the pro con video of just planning in general, the biggest pro of this is that it's all self-contained. I can go to every note I have for that day. I can go to I can create any new note with any template. I can do all of that right from here. I don't have to go anywhere else at all. But I can't add a link. It would be awesome to be able to add a link here. So if I'm going into a meeting, and that would be another wonderful thing to have both on the daily view or the weekly view. If I have a note that I need to reference that was done 2 months ago, the only way to access that would be to open up the quick access menu and then go directly to that file or folder. I'm not sure that I want to do that because that requires a lot of change out. And for the most part, my quick access is really important to have the things I use most often. So if I'm just in a meeting and I have to reference a document from 2 months ago, is that a quick access? Now, some would argue that it is, and that's what I've done sometimes to mitigate this problem, especially when I'm going to use it a lot. However, at the same time, it's not the best use of the device. If you could use that linking functionality to link to that document for a one-off, it would be even more powerful, especially if you could either add it into the event itself, which I know would be a little bit harder, but not impossible, or if you could add it on the daily or weekly view to be able to access it really, really quickly. That would be an effective use of the tool. And the final thing I think would be nice for them to add would be the ability to go to hyperlinks. So now you're never going to run a Zoom meeting on here. You're never going to go to Google Meet on here. That's not the point of this device. But for example, I think it would be really neat if right here I added in the link to my blog. And if I could, if I was showing this to somebody or if I had a document on Google Docs and I wanted to show that, I could do that right from the calendar event. I could type it into the event description, have these links ready right there, and I could go through and I could pop that up just on the screen or have them for my own reference as I was having that meeting. It's really a fun and useful tool. I use it in notes all the time. So it's something that you can definitely use when you're talking about the note feature. And just to show you how that works, I'll go ahead and show you that in a note. And when I press on that link, it will take me to my blog. Hopefully, if I entered everything incorrectly, and it did. So I entered everything into the system correctly. This came up. If that functionality was also in the calendar, it would be fabulous. It really would. Because now from here, I can search. Now, this isn't a fully functional browser, but it does work. So if I put random, Make sure you got it right. So if I enter that in, I hit enter on the virtual keyboard or on the handwriting keyboard, I get my article. Again, this is a tool that I'm not sure the Supernote is fully embraced. Uh, this is a very basic browser. You can't navigate from here except through other hyperlinks, but it would be very useful in the calendar, just as useful as it is in notes to be able to pop up with certain things. So, and I think that it's really important for them to consider whether or not this would be useful in that calendar. And again, we can go back to the main calendar. And there you go. Well, there you go, everyone. Thank you again for taking some time to be with me today, going through the calendar. Hopefully, you really enjoyed it. If you did, please like and subscribe below. If you'd like to see some of my other videos, please take a look. My one that I did earlier on in December on the Supernote, kind of the beta features, has almost 2,000 views. So if you'd like to take a look at that and give me your thoughts, your comments, let me know what else you'd like to see on the channel. More than happy to hear it. I respond to comments, I enjoy them. I try to learn all I can. If there's something that I've said here that isn't accurate, please tell me as well. I always respond again and try to make myself better and hopefully get the word out there of all the different things you can do with the Supernode and just about daily organizing as well. I mean, I know this video and some of them have been very tailored. Again, that's because it's the device I use, not because I believe it's the only device capable of doing these things. I've also done reviews on the Rocketbook, and I'm hoping to start reviewing more different types of technologies as well. In the future, I plan to do a video on how I use all of my devices, whether it's my laptop, my phone, or my Supernote to get things done. Because you can't just use one device, you can't use one method. You really have to think about your ecosystem and the things that make you productive as a whole. So, thank you again. Great to see all of you. Look forward to more in the new year. And until next time.